either personal training, maybe you're doing becoming a coach at the local CrossFit box. Something that was awesome for me was becoming a youth sports coach. I did lacrosse coaching, camps, clinics, like private lessons for a long period of time. That allowed me to do something that was relatively easy for me. I also got my first business was in lacrosse. It was a lacrosse services organization. Not saying you have to do that, but if you're in a club sports organization, you're getting paid to coach. So now you're getting paid to coach. Now you could be in a situation where you're making extra money, but then you're also still filling that social capital bucket at the same time. So that wouldn't be a bad idea either. Understanding financially, there are certain ways depending on, in network, out of network, cash, but obviously there is a certain amount that people must work to account for paying for themselves. You have to pay for administrative tasks in your operation that you're at. You've got to pay for technology, supplies, utility fees. So there is a fine line between working in a mill where you're probably getting leverage yourself and then not quite working enough. I would always point to two places. UpDoc Media and the State of the Industry Report always has really, really good metrics out there. And this is just to provide perspective. If you look at WebPT's State of the Industry Report, if you look at UpDoc Media's annual report, you'll have a very good idea of where averages are. Average billable units, average sessions per week. Putting yourself in a situation where you understand that middle part of the bell curve as it is associated with the work that you have going on makes you understand a little bit more about how businesses just naturally have to operate. And I say that because I think naturally as a younger professional, we are trying to calibrate how much is enough and where that point is in terms of expectations. The B word gets thrown around a lot. Our younger professionals in our company typically always will report, and we've been doing this for 4 years now, lower on work-life balance as opposed to our older professionals. I think there's a certain amount of certainty. There's a certain amount of just kind of like settling in and kind of understanding and maybe not having as much like pressure and stress because you just have an idea of what is expected of you. And you've kind of come to grips with, this is the reality of the profession that I chose. This is how work is supposed to be. This is how I can move the needle for myself. This is how I can control things. This is how I can fill my cup up outside of work. There's all those different factors there. But again, putting yourself in a situation where we're talking about financial literacy or financial capital, how can you create financial opportunities for yourself outside of work? And then how can you create financial opportunities for yourself inside of work? More work is naturally going to end up with more money. But the more that you put yourself in a situation where you are valuable, the more that you can leverage that and you can start to do slightly less work for hopefully more money at some point in time, or you're making things easier for yourself to make the same amount of money. Or it's just easier for you to go about your day and make the same amount of money because you're seeing a patient population group that you generally enjoy more. So it doesn't feel like you are quote unquote working as much. But personal and business literacy, or financial literacy, like just super important. I can't emphasize enough, just, learning how money works for you. If you have a 401k at your company, like take it, that's free money. If you end up wanting to get into real estate, I know it's really tough to buy a house right now, but look into house hacking. Like that was one of the best early decisions I ever made. I bought a small townhouse. I had friends that were still renting. I was like, hey, live with me. It was a better situation. I know not everybody likes living with people, but if you want to save yourself money or potentially have your place almost entirely paid for, buying a place and then having roommates really, really helps you out. My townhouse that I got, I ended up not really paying a dime for it over the course of like the first 3 to 4 years because I had 3 roommates in there. Not saying everybody's comfortable with that, but I was like, I can sacrifice certain things for not having to worry about paying for mortgage and utilities. So house hacking is a very, very good strategy. If you live in certain areas of the country where you can do a duplex, that's a whole separate conversation itself. If you want to learn about real estate and stuff like that, biggerpockets.com is a great place to learn. So, I think real estate's a great place for a lot of people, but 401k, we have a section 127 plan that might be worth asking people where you're at. The section 127 plan allows you to have $5,250 of your money that goes pre-tax to student loans. So it's about $1,600 to $1,700 extra dollars a year. You might as well do it. You might as well ask for it. If somebody can do that for you over the course of 3 years, you just got $5,000 extra that you wouldn't have got otherwise if you were not taking advantage of section 127, which is part of the CARES Act. Trying to think where else I was going with financial stuff. Yeah. That's it. So then with intellectual capital, I think again, you've got to, and you wouldn't be in this program. You wouldn't have put yourself in other Con Ed programs to build out yourself as a clinician. But then I think there's a certain understanding where this is conversations with leadership at your company, having a better understanding of how your role can benefit the company. How can you create your niche while also benefiting the company? That's you having a certain amount of business awareness. Hey, if I do X, Y, and Z, and this benefits the company, how does this potentially change things for me as a result of benefiting the company? So, again, it kind of all comes back to the social capital piece. But, if you want to be a leader in your organization, you want to be a leader in your community, you want to benefit yourself financially, you need to have an idea of how the finances work and where you're at. You need to have an idea of how the business that you're at operates and how they value humans who do end up doing these certain things as it relates to the social side. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? Other than for like the last 10 minutes, I can pretty much be an open book with questions. Thoughts, questions? Does it relate a little bit to kind of where you are at professionally? A lot of it should be kind of like how are you having more productive conversations with leadership where you're at? How are you making sure that you are more clear about where your career would like to go? How the company that you're at can support you with where your career would like to go. And then making sure that you're actually taking the steps to work in that direction. Like, what am I doing outside of the clinic? Am I working enough? Am I working hard enough? The time to work hard is before you've got potentially more levels of complexity. As you get older, life typically gets more complex and not less, right? For some of us in our situation, it's like I look at some people in our company, they have 3 kids. That's complex. There's a lot more stuff that you're juggling. You're juggling other humans, So while you're not potentially in that point of your life, making sure that you are doing things a certain way to set yourself up. You want more time leverage. You want more leverage for finances when you get to that point in your life. That is what I hope for all of you. But you can be intentional about these steps right now to kind of get yourself to a point where you have that. And again, if you want to learn more about this stuff, like, intrapreneur, you could just search, how to be more intrapreneur. How can I be a more effective intrapreneur? Intrapreneur tips and tricks. It's going to pop up on a lot of different places on Google, a lot of big name business sites. It's not something that is maybe used enough from a term standpoint, because I would argue that no entrepreneurs can be successful without intrapreneurs. Entrepreneurs just have a little bit more risk tolerance. That's it. Questions? Thoughts?
I thought that was all really helpful and informative. I'm excited to look into this section 127 thing, because as a new grad, I haven't had to start paying my loans back yet, but that is just like a creeping fear that's slowly coming. But I do just have like a couple questions for you, just in your own like personal and professional development. Like, what does a day in the life of Josh Funk look like?
Oh,
like,
man.
How do you balance your social health, mental health, physical health, work? Like, I know you're a really hard worker, so that's I know there's a high standard, but I'm just looking into like how you serve yourself like daily. Like, what does that look like for you?
It honestly, a lot of it starts with going to bed on time. If I'm having my best day, it is because I went to bed when I was actually tired and supposed to go to bed. Nothing against watching TV, but I think TV is probably the thing that I've realized over the course of my life has been the least value add and the thing that may take me away from my routine the most when I'm at home and thrown off my night before work. And then you're like sitting there, you're like, shit, it's 11 o'clock. Like I only have X amount of sleep. I would rather go to bed too early, wake up too early, have hours to myself where nobody is pinging me or bothering me yet, go to the gym, and then start the rest of my day when everybody else has. So I would rather go to bed early, wake up uninhibited, not bothered, no alarm clock because I went to bed earlier, hit my morning tasks, right? Which can be a wide variety of different things. We'll get to calendaring in a second. Work out, because when I work out in the morning, I have the best days by far. And then I've done all that stuff when nobody is slacking me, messaging me, emailing me, DMing me, anything. And then the calendaring part, we have to create time for ourselves personally. We have to create time for ourselves professionally. There are recurring tasks that we want in life. There are variable tasks that we have in life. There are recurring finances we have in life. There are variable finances we have in life. So what are you doing to make sure that your recurring tasks are being done in a recurring fashion and we're not allowing recurring things to be variable? And then what block of our day are we accounting for things that are a part of our to-do list, which are more variable? I've gotten better about putting a Google Doc up, and I have a running to-do list. So I have areas on my calendar that just say, check to-do list. And I'll plug in and I'll make sure that I've got things going on there. And then I have the first part of my day protected by my recurring tasks. I have to get my recurring tasks done first. I have to make sure that I'm doing certain things as it relates to operations, finances, professional growth, personal growth, company growth, things that are in categories. But if you haven't become very good at using your Google Calendar or something similar, I would argue that you're going to run the risk of being busy as opposed to productive. And there's a very, very big difference between the two. When I am productive, I'm intentional. When I'm busy, I just do things. Busy is a very, very easy way to be in the same place next year. So like, for example, like when I work with business owners, and it should be no different for a personal or a person, you should have tasks that you look at on your calendar throughout the course of a week. And they are like, they're just to operate. It's like to continue to be at the level at which you're at. And then you should have things on a calendar each week that you're like, that's helping me grow. That's a growth task. That's growing me personally. That's growing me professionally. And that's how you kind of have these aggregation of marginal gains in a bunch of different areas. But if you can't separate your tasks each week and look and go, this is operational, this is growth, then you're just operating your baseline. You're going to be in the same spot in 365 days because you're not allocating time to growth. What's growth? Growth for a lot of people, I would argue, right? It's time for yourself. It's mental, emotional, physical time for yourself. And then that's internal growth. And then your external growth is marketing. It's social capital. That's a social capital piece. Like you can't grow without exposure to new humans. It's very, very hard. I mean, you can, but it's just harder. It could be in the digital space too. It doesn't necessarily, like this could be viewed as growth. This is external, right? This is internal and external growth at the same time. But I would argue that it is external because it's not time to yourself. It's not reading. It's not, you potentially working out. It's not you going for a walk. It's not you going hiking or like something where you're having time for yourself, where you probably are growing as a result of creating the space. But this is you externally exposing yourself to new to then bring it back to internal time.